So this hand happened in the Venetian $1,600 $3 million guarantee the other day. I was on day two, and it's a spot where, I think that some people are making betting mistakes. So this hand happened at 5,000, 10,000 on day two. There was about 150 people left, and I started the hand with about 280,000 chips, 270. It folds around to the button, and my opponent opens to 21,000. I'm in the big blind with ace four of hearts, and I elect to defend, and we go heads up to the flop. Now the flop comes 9 of diamonds, 5 of hearts, and 3 of diamonds. I check, and my opponent down bets to 17,000. Pretty clear call for me on the flop here. I have gut shot, backdoor, flush draw, and if the ace comes, I am going to deem that to be good, and I just deem ace high to be good right now a lot of the time. So anytime my opponent is giving up on the turn, if he's just one and doneing this board, then he'll just be betting flop, checking back turn, checking back river, and I'm going to get to showdown ace high a lot of the time, and it just be good. So I call. The turn is the queen of hearts, and now this is where things get interesting. I checked my opponent, and he bets 48,000. Now, when he bets 48,000, and I have 235,000 in my stack, if I elect to call, there's going to be roughly about a pot-sized bet left. So there will be about 180 in the pot. I'll have 180, and it just sets up for a really good shove for my opponent on the river. When that's the case, I kind of have to take a line where I'm able to capitalize on the equity of my hand and possibly get my opponent to fold some slightly better hands. Although in this spot, I don't feel like he has a ton of slightly better hands, but I do feel like he has a wide array of draws, either gut shots or flush draws, and he's barreling them on the turn, trying to get me off a 5, a 3, ace highs like I do have. If I were to have ace 4 offsuit here, like with the ace of diamonds, I think I'd play it very similarly pre-flop and on the flop, so he would get me to fold those hands on the turn. The fact that I have ace 4 of hearts, it sets up for the perfect jam here. I have a lot of equity, and I'm not going to allow myself to be bluffed on the river if I miss and I have to check. So for all those reasons, I elect to shove. And now this puts 373,000 chips in the pot, and my opponent has to call 187,000, and he is pained. When I see the look on his face, I'm pretty sure that this ace high is good, and he's made a betting mistake on the turn. So he thinks it over, and he ends up calling with the 6-7 of hearts. Now let's talk about all of the reasons that this is a betting mistake on the turn. Best case scenario, he has 15 outs going to the river. And when that's the case, he has 34% equity to win the pot. Now, the price he's getting laid is 2-1, meaning that he's about break even or is a slight winner. He actually wins like half a big blind when he calls here or something like that. So when he calls, he wins half a big blind, and that's with 15 outs. That's with a gut shot straight or double gut shot with a flush draw. And the reason that I think it is a very big betting mistake on the turn, just sizing wise, is because of the fact of the way he's constructed the pot leading up to this. And that's the most important thing of all this, is he's betting a size where if I call, the stack to pot ratio is 1-1. So that just means that I'm going to be shoving over his bet on the turn a lot of the time, because I'm not going to just be putting in, a third of my stack and then be guessing on the river, especially out of position. It just makes life very, very difficult. And so when that's the case, I'm just going to be shoving through a lot. When I shove, he quite literally beats nothing with 7 high. And while most of the time that's fine and you can just get rid of 7 high, when you have a hand of this high of equity, you need to see the river. You need to realize the full amount of your equity here. And so that's why I think that he should be choosing a different sizing on the turn, maybe even a really, really small sizing in the 25,000 chip neighborhood. So if he were to bet that, it doesn't really set up all that great for me to be shoving all in for 235K. Worst case scenario for him is I'm probably going to check raise, or most people would check raise to 100,000 or so. And when that's the case, he can peel 7 high. When he gets there, he's going to be getting paid. When he doesn't, he's not going to be getting paid. Let's go back to what the best case scenario for him is when he's calling this 187,000. So if he calls and he has 15 outs, he's getting precisely the right price and he's making a break-even call. But let's analyze the worst case scenarios from his point of view. What happens when I have a bigger flush draw, like I did? Now he's down to 12 clean outs. When that's the case, he is going to actually be losing 3.5 big blinds here, or 35,000 chips. And even further down the spectrum of worst case scenarios for him is what happens when I have a 9 with a flush draw. If I were to have something like 9-10 of hearts, now he has 6 outs clean, just an 8 or a 4. And when that's the case, he's losing roughly 110,000 chips or 11 big blinds. So in all 3 scenarios, whether he has 6, 12, or 15 outs, he is losing chips or breaking even. And when that's the case, you're making a calling mistake. And if you deem me to not have enough hands in my flop calling range that now fold on this turn, then it's really problematic. And for that reason, I think that he should just be taking a free one off here on the turn as opposed to betting 48,000. Or another good option would be to bet much, much smaller, like 25 to 30,000. And when I do call on the turn, it sets up really nicely for him to make a big triple barrel bet on the river that is going to get me off a lot of 5s. Gonna put me to the test with a 9 a lot of the time, especially when a 10 or higher falls. And when an 8 or a 4 falls, he can size accordingly and get paid off a lot of the time, because those cards aren't going to be, in my perception, those aren't going to be deemed to be hitting him and improving his hand. It's something to just be very conscious of for all of you, and just be thinking about when you're making your bets on flops and turns is, how is this pot being constructed and how is my opponent going to react to this? Alright, so thanks everyone for watching. Just to let you guys know, he ended up calling on the turn, and it was after a little bit of chatter, and I kind of ribbed him a little bit when he was in the tank, and I was duly punished immediately with the 4 of diamonds on the river. So for the rest of the summer, maybe I'm gonna keep my mouth shut when I'm all in, but maybe not.